So welcome to the Goob Squad. This is episode 5? What? Where are we? Yeah, we're technically on 5.
We're recording this on the same day after 4, like literally like 20 minutes after. So yeah.
Yeah, we're just
everybody in.
trying to get it all out there, and just shoot our shot and hopefully hit something. Anyways, so this episode's topic will be
Today is sponsored by Squarespace from Shadow Legends. Please sponsor us.
Oh man, comes equipped with manscaping and.
Please don't shave your balls. Or don't tell me about it. I mean, or do, and don't tell me about it.
Yes, please don't soundbite me with me going with that same sponsorship editor, which is me.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a professional
Okay, guys, maybe we should introduce ourselves for all of our listeners who's this is the first time that.
Yeah, if you're a first-time listener,
first time, I'm sorry that you're here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You may have made a mistake. If you want to back out now, I understand.
Oh man.
I just gotta thank my mom one more time for listening to this.
Oh God. All right.
She's not there.
That would be my dad.
All right. So yeah, I'm Rage Fade Sean. Next person, go.
Oh yeah, yours truly, Anti-Metaverse, friendly neighborhood, and all that stuff.
And I'm V. I also have a handle, mostly KG names, but I'll just leave those to the viewer to find out. But I'm here too.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm Apollo. I'm also here. Let's get on with this.
Thank you for your enthusiasm, Apollo.
And with that great enthusiasm, we start off with our next topic. Our next topic is, what is our favorite lore in games?
Dun dun dun.
Bada boom!
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to start?
Okay.
Since I brought it up, I would say my favorite lore in game, I would have to say, like, the first thing that pops up to my mind is Resident Evil. That one's my favorite, like, all-time favorite, like, background story and all that other stuff that circles around it. Other lore that I do like.
Wait! Why? I'm actually quite surprised. I thought you were gonna go with a different thing, but go ahead.
Okay, all right. Okay. So the reason why Resident Evil for me is like my favorite lore surrounding just like all of it is because well, first of all, it does kind of hit a personal spot for me that Resident Evil 2 was the first PlayStation game that I played, and I love horror genre. So horror genre like is my favorite, both like movies. I like creatures, like I like monsters and stuff like that, and I love this aspect of that there's this crazy scientist or crazy insane person in this survival horror situation that there's notes around them and they're kind of orchestrating something in the behind the scenes. It's kind of feels like I'm getting this it feels.
It's almost like a conspiracy theory.
Yes, X-File-ish tinfoil hat.
Well, yeah, it is, and they play into that in the series.
And that's why I enjoy it. And one of the other games that kind of play into that too, that's super close, is also all of BioShock series, pretty much. Yeah. But the reason why Resident Evil trumps that is I feel like Resident Evil was like, the one that set the stage for it. Like, if it wasn't for Resident Evil, then BioShock wouldn't have the kind of same, like, they wouldn't be able to, they learned from that and they kind of moved it to a new era or something like that. I like that. And then the couple other lore stories I do enjoy is... honestly, there's a lot of different like science fiction games that I enjoy. that has lore to it. Some of the aspects is like maybe that's less fictional. Like Metal Gear has like they talk about things that is
You know,
facts. You know,
I swore that was gonna be
Yeah.
your
They,
favorite
they
lore.
yeah, they
right?
have the alternate history.
Yeah, they have the
Thing
alternate
that they
history
do.
aspects, but then they also have things that like they reference to real things that you
Yeah.
don't learn from games.
Yeah.
That's actually one thing that like it's different from Resident Evil. That like I like Resident Evil the first like I like that one better than Metal Gear in the sense that it's just all fictional and it's creepy and it adds into the atmosphere and it's just like it's very makes sense for that series. Metal Gear, on the other hand, it's just like there's so fucking too much, you know. Like some of the information they give you is like, why do I even need to know this? But that's cool to know because it's like, oh, this
Right.
is an actual thing, and like you can look it up. It's
Yeah, it
again
gets into like the history and like geopolitical stuff
right.
and like all this like global stuff that's like actually happened.
Yeah, that's
I
like
mean, especially
very real.
yeah.
It's
I
kind
mean,
of like a book, you know.
he's always done so much world building around like the topics of geopolitics and just inserting his own um you know just this like all this crazy science fiction within that within that sphere of geopolitics. It's
That's one of my favorite things about Metal Gear is the way that
Mhm.
they insert like it's very seamless the way they insert that political and especially the sci-fi elements into the stealth genre. Like no other series does it like that. Like it's
Yeah.
really unique. Like and even though like Metal Gear's it's not quite my favorite stealth series, I always appreciate it for that because it really does feel like seamless when you're like stealthing. You're like you have all these really like really detailed like military tactics and like all these things and like you're stealthing through and like Big Boss or Snake is giving you like tips on like why he tilts his gun a certain way and like all these different things and like you'll be stealthing through a situation and then you'll meet like I don't know the Pain or something from fucking MGS3 where he like explodes into bees and you're like what like in any other game like it's still weird but in
Yeah.
any other game you'd be like this is fucking stupid but in Metal Gear it's like this is weird but it also works really well with the world that they've established.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say those two come to mind as like instinctively like that. I would say those are the top.
Mm.
And I'm hoping for something that beats that is Cyberpunk because I feel like Cyberpunk's gonna beat that in terms of just
Maybe.
the lore aspect of it. Like the more I learn, the more it's gonna be like just more investing. But hopefully, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's about it for me.
Yeah, hopefully that series does a good job at the world building. Huh. I'll go ahead and mention mine. You might not be surprised to find out that some of my favorite lore actually comes from Destiny. Um, in fact,
Really?
yeah. I mean, okay, you just picture this. You have this sci-fi opera, and space opera,
Right.
situated, somewhere in the far future after some sort of like uh, solar system golden age when this like godlike the orb just like completely blesses the entire earth and and it has after that has like this like enormous fight against some sort of dark you know um
Nebulous darkness.
nebulous darkness that this night destroys almost the entire human race in the entire solar system. And the thing is, I think about that entire that entire exposition is that you're the the part that we end up playing, it's just what happens after all that exciting stuff.
Right.
Like we actually
So
come out after.
we come into the story after all the good stuff has happened.
Yes. So that's exactly what's most infuriating about
Yeah.
playing Destiny. The fact that we're there to just we're the janitors. We're there to clean
Right.
up the mess that
The
the kids
janitors.
had, that the kids left behind after having all the the party for the couple of hundreds of years.
Right.
Um, and there's just some really cool um, there's some really cool things that are just kind of left behind that are always left, best to the imagination. Like um, a lot of the lore involves on how um, there's this one solar system AI machine called Rasputin that survived the darkness, and like a lot of the um, more interesting lore that I think happens in both the game and the other series I'm gonna mention, which is well, might as well just say it right now. Dark Souls. It's just
That's the
uh,
one that I thought would be your top, for
yeah,
sure. I thought it would be either that or Bloodborne.
Bloodborne, interesting, and yeah, I could see why Bloodborne, although definitely Dark Souls trumps that, but I think that a Destiny ended up being the one that I would choose as my top one simply because I ended up liking the lore more than I actually like the game.
Yeah, I
Mm.
agree for sure. Why do you think that? That's surprising. Okay, your opinions are actually really blowing me out of the water because I thought for sure that you would think Bloodborne's lore was way more alluring than Dark Souls.
I definitely like that. It's hard not to say that Bloodborne has some of my favorite lore because it has a lot of like the H.P. Lovecraftian um, cosmic horror that I like so much. But
Yeah.
I just think the world building is done better in both, especially in Dark Souls. But
Mm.
Could also
there's
say
just
that Bloodborne is only one game, whereas Dark Souls, like
Right. It's a
several,
series. Yeah.
yeah,
several games. So
y- yeah.
hopefully, maybe more fleshed out, maybe in the future.
That's probably yeah. If
Come
there's
on,
ever a second
Bloodborne 2 any day now.
Bloodborne, it's such a well-contained sort of story. I don't know. I don't know exactly where they would go with the with a second Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Um,
it's tricky.
yeah. One thing I like about the second, I mean, about just the Dark Souls um, lore in general is the fact that there isn't one specific bad guy. Like there isn't one antagonist throughout the
Mm.
entire thing.
Yeah.
Like the closest thing to an antagonist is just the general uh, entropy of the universe, just the passing of
Right.
like of the entire world into just death and decay. But yeah, Dark Souls is definitely the one that the one intriguing world that I just kind of want to keep digging and digging more and more. And thank God there's a Vatividia to talk to me all about it.
I love his videos, and I'm so invested when I watch him. But I'm gonna be honest. As soon as I turn it off, I'm like, "That was great." I don't remember anything I just watched.
Oh
Did you
man.
play you played the Ring City DLC for Dark Souls 3, right, Carlos?
I did for sure.
Like I didn't play it, but I've seen some streams of it, and man, like because you're talking about like the passage of time and sort of the way the universe works in that game or in those games, and that's so cool. Like because that one's like basically where you're like at the end of time, right? And like all the fucking like everything, like the entire world's basically like
Just
collapsed on
turned,
itself.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Like
so
all the world
cool,
has just
man.
turned to ash. Like the very first on that very first last battle in the original Dark Souls, even before you get into the ring city. You remember that battle against the what's it called, the Lord of Cinder,
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
um, it
the
wasn't.
dude on the cover.
Yeah, the dude on the cover. Like the way that that's explained, that's all the worlds that have ever existed in Lordran, that they're all just kind of moving into each other. They just kind of
Yeah,
that transition into each other. It's just such a cool, it's just such a
it's
creative
very
thing.
high concept, dude. I love it. Like it's very creative.
Yeah, yeah. Like I could never think of something so creative as that.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my two favorite lore series for sure. Like they're just so creative and imaginative, and that's exactly what I liked about Destiny 2. A lot of the really high concept, um, you know, things the in the series when it came to the darkness, the Rasputin, and the machines and the for example the race of machines that you play as, or like um, what's it called, the robot enemies that you fight as uh, are also contained within those like white cores
Oh
that
yeah,
are actually just kind of consciousness, and that they play
the
around
Vex.
with time and simulations.
They called the Vex.
The Vex, you're right. They're called the Vex.
Right there.
I remember that. I don't even. All right, let's keep going. Keep going.
Let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right.
So yeah,
Metal Gear.
basically, you really your type of lore is very much universal and kind of higher concept in the sense of entropy itself, like the actual potential destruction of everything almost, or the
Yeah.
reset of it. It's definitely universal, I guess, like a
Yeah, like
universal kind of concept.
I like the kind of things that like deal more in the concepts of like time and space and like the very loss of the universe itself. Like just I like those type
Yeah,
of analysis that
astral, almost close
yeah,
to
those
astronomy.
astronomical, cosmological
Yeah,
analogies.
cool.
All right.
Cool. All right, who's next? Who's
D,
next?
what do you got?
All right. So this one is not a very mature example, but I shouldn't be apologizing to the audience. This is
We're
my
all
family.
basically 12-year-olds anyway. It's okay.
All right. So my lore is Pokemon,
Oh,
Sweet.
Oh.
and the reason why I'm saying this is because every time technology gets better for the games, they're able to build the world a little bit better. Like when people think about Pokemon, they think about what the first generation. They think the Game
yeah, for
Boy.
sure.
They think the first season of the anime. That's all they know, and that's all they'll ever get out of it. It's
That's certainly me.
something that we just can't escape.
Yeah.
Anytime we kind of go outside the lines, and this is something I'll get into a little bit later. One thing that gave us a good idea of how the Pokemon world could function was Detective Pikachu, but it took a while to get there. So, let going back to let's say the Nintendo DS, something that gave us a little bit of a better idea of how they could develop the story of Pokemon games was Pokemon Black and White, because it started asking some questions about being a trainer. Do you really want to be the best there ever was? What happens after you become the champion? What happens when you're champion for a long time and your partner Pokemon that you built a bond with when you were like 10 or a teenager dies? And
Mm.
it explores a lot of themes that the anime doesn't really touch or kind of brushes upon in the movies. Um, but it does show that, like, hey, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes Pokemon outlive their trainers. Sometimes trainers outlive their Pokemon, and there's
Right.
all
So
these heavier themes.
there's definitely even if it's to say it's targeted for like a young audience, it still has strong like more adult themes that are underlined. I like that you bring that up because I actually have a good experience with Sun and Moon and the villain in it. That one to me was really cool when you started reading the blogs about her.
Yeah, exactly. That because yeah, Sun and Moon is a beast on its own because it does have a split timeline. And
Yeah.
the way they seem to establish Sun and Moon was nothing like what they ended up with in the anime, but they did adopt some elements from it, which I still think worked. But another thing is that ever since the Nintendo DS, they started going to other regions outside of Japanese-based ones. That isn't to say that Hoenn and Sinnoh can't be diverse, because they did have characters who were clearly foreigners in those regions. Like they had Glacia of the Elite Four, or Fantina, who was a gym leader who spoke like either French in the English version or English in the Japanese version. They had little hints that there was an established culture, and they kind of play around with it because it's not technically set in our world, or at least it developed in a way where it tried to suggest it was, because there were entries in the Pokedex mentioning China and South America, but now they're kind of shying away from that. And it makes a bit more sense to go in that direction because you're building all these new regions, and it kind of represents our world by proxy, but not fully. So you have
Right.
Palos, which is supposed to be France. You have Unova, which is supposed to be New York. You have like Sinnoh, Hoenn, Johto, Kanto, which are all just pieces of Japan. And then you have like Alola, which is Hawaii, and Galar, which is England, or maybe the UK in general, but mostly England. And I like that direction because it does give them an idea of what kind of lore to build from when they're coming up with their monster ideas. Maybe they borrow from some myths, maybe they don't. Um, Maybe they borrow from the animals that exist in that region, maybe they don't. They kind of play around with it, but it does show that their world is expanding and they do know what to build with it. And they also realize that even though they try to give the series a timeline, that might be detrimental for the series in terms of marketing because you have things like Team Rocket Falls. Well, maybe we should keep Team Rocket going in the card game, Pokemon Go, and all that shit stuff because Team Rocket is popular. The Team Rocket trio from the anime, they're popular. So we
Right.
kind of want to put them in other stuff. You have all these other trainers who kind of have their own popularity with the fans, and then they decide to elevate them a little bit more. They decide to give them a bit more lore in other games. So I like that they take those kind of steps because they didn't. At first, they were just saying like, let's just sell the games for the monsters, but then they say, hey, we're noticing there's this trend that other things of the series are getting popular. Let's market on that. And I like to see where this is headed when maybe we have something better than the Nintendo Switch, or maybe um, they want to do more. Maybe they want to do more movies like Detective Pikachu. That was handled very well. Like it was a way different
Oh yeah,
game.
I
They
enjoyed
had
that
way
movie actually.
different characters from the Detective Pikachu games, but it worked. Like it wasn't what a lot of people expected at first glance, but it ended up working because a lot of people didn't play the Detective Pikachu games, but they have an idea of how there could be a Pokemon cinematic universe. So yeah,
Mm.
I mean, it started off being very simple and for kids, but there's a lot of themes that the series touches on. And back where I said that they kind of have it separate from our world, they also have little hints that there's some of the same things that go on in our world. Like they have Nintendo consoles, they have movies like Stand By Me and Singing in the Rain. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
they hinted it. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually,
That's really
can
cool. I
you
didn't know any of
right? Yeah. Can you actually go more into like the villain in Sun and Moon? If I remember correctly, the notes that were kind of put in there was that they were hinting that she was actually straight up she was experimenting on Pokemon and killing them. Like
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So the
Hmm.
villain of Sun and Moon is actually a character's mother, and that kind of clashes with the wholesome image of what Pokemon is to some people, going like, "Oh no, everybody lives in a house made of candy. Everybody's friendly to each other." No, this
Right.
is a woman who's very rich. She runs an organization that's supposed to be a Pokemon preserve, and she was messing around with. I guess she was trying to um, look into these extra dimensional Pokemon that can open up wormholes called Ultra Beasts. And it was suggested that her personality might have been influenced because there's a Pokemon that looks like a jellyfish. It looks like a glass jellyfish, and the typing suggests that its material is more akin to crystal meth because it's like rock and poison. Now, it doesn't confirm this. That's just my interpretation of it. But it's Nihilego. It's a rock and poison jellyfish Pokemon. It's also known as UV01. We called it Symbionts in the US version, but Japan called it Parasite. So that's its
Hmm.
code name. What this Pokemon does is that when it comes in contact with humans, it causes on its glass jellyfish like scales. And it sometimes attaches to people and just drives them crazy. They have coverage about this. There's actually a special that talks about this on one of their Japanese websites. They have this picture of some people going crazy because Nihiligo's attaching to them, and they're just like in public. So it suggested that the mother Lucamine was under the influence of this poison because her worst traits were being amplified. She was acting very. She was very Disney villain stepmother type of
Right.
levels of deranged. Like she had some of her old Pokemon frozen on display, and I don't know if they were dead. I don't know if that Pikachu was dead, but it was frozen in her room,
So
and you
fascinating.
get to examine it.
You're blowing my
And-
mind, D. I didn't know any of this shit about Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought it up, and I'm glad I'm like you're explaining it way better than how I experienced it. But yeah, definitely would. But you're nailing it though, because when I played Sun and Moon, I went to Sun and Moon, and then I went straight to the current one, Sword and Shield, hoping that we would get more of that kind of stuff too. Because yeah, it.
Oh no, back to the status quo. Back to the status quo. That's where they went. Yeah, played safe in the HP.
Yeah. But yeah, I like this. I like where they were going with that. It was giving a layer to Pokemon, and like to villains that it's unsettling, but at the same time, it's like it now kind of gives more weight to it. I feel.
Yeah. And they had that kind of layer of disturbance in other games. Not a lot of them, but X and Y had villains who pretty much wanted to, I guess, wipe the world clean and just leave it to like a big reset button. That was a thing.
Right.
Not people in Pokemon were mass genocide by
Yeah,
some
they were
ancient weapon.
They were basically nihilists. They wanted to wipe everything completely. Was the villain? I can't. One thing I can't remember specifically is in Sun and Moon. She was kind of like delusional, right? In the sense that she thought what she was doing was saving the world, right? Or saving Pokemon.
Yeah.
Well,
She had some fascination with the Ultra Beasts. Now, some fans did speculate it was because that her husband did go missing because of an encounter with Ultra Beasts, and they were and she was just driven by trying to find them. But there was a little bit more that happened. Like she just became obsessed with her research, and somehow her contact with Nihiligo is sent her to be deranged to some level. It wasn't specifically clear if it was because of Nihiligo or if it was because of her obsession, but I do remember in some interviews they were trying to say that one of the themes of the game was obsession, how it can just drive you apart from your peers or your family and everything, and just like at a certain point obsession does become like a poison, and it will turn you into a monster if you let it. So it's like, okay, I get that.
right.
Whether it was dealing with a loss or her contact with the poison glass Pokemon or whatever, she definitely was not the same as she was before. And her actions really drove the plot where she was distanced from her two children, and she kind of had a comeuppance, but by the time you finish the game, she just gets sent off in the distance, going like, oh, we're going to find a way to treat her because she was in a coma after a while. And they did do this in the Ultra Sun and Moon games. I admittedly just glanced over plot points for that, to be honest. I heard that they tried to make it a little bit closer to her treatment in the anime, where she's not a villain, she's just silly.
She's just silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. No, the fucking TV series would totally like, oh, we're not gonna put that in that she murdered anything. No, that's not. We're not gonna put that in.
Once the company everything's good and stuff, but you don't really do anything harmful. You just get forced to turn into that fusion monster beast.
We're gonna destroy some kids' fantasies about it. we're Yeah, we're totally gonna put that into the story and not, ruin some kids like they think they is gonna ruin some kid's life.
Make that a battle. Like all that HP and just like, hey, this is just a boss only creature that you fight. Nah, nah, nah. Fish monster beast body, and I'm going to send out my Pokemon. It's like, really? Okay. It's potential there, Game Freak, but I get it.
All right. Is that so? Is that your? Is there any other like lore out there that you're?
I mean, a lot of things for lore just tend to be Nintendo stuff. I mean, Mario, without just looking at the platform games, is interesting lore in on himself, not as a series, but as a character. Because he's had more jobs. He's had as many jobs as Barbie. I effectively call Mario Barbie with a dick because he just has all these different
Mario
types of
with a dick.
professions: astronaut, doctor, construction worker, demolitions guy.
If he's not, is he qualified to do most of the jobs?
If Nintendo says he's qualified, I believe he's qualified.
Because being a plumber is kind of different than being an astronaut, just a little bit.
Or a doctor.
Just a little bit, but hey, he. As far as his doctor license goes, I mean, who knows how the Mushroom Kingdom hands out PhDs? He got 3 Goombas in the lab coat. He got
It's gonna turn out that
Wario.
it's gonna turn out
Anyone
Mario is
can be a
just like that guy from Catch Me If You Can, who's just
Oh,
been
that'd be
cunning
funny.
his way. Yeah.
Oh,
He's just been
DiCaprio
cunning his.
character?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just been
Yeah.
where he
cunning his way
fakes
in
and
every single
fakes in
position.
his he
Yeah.
fakes all his paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
I buy that. I buy that.
He's just like, yes, of course I know how this stretchy thing works. What is it? Skin doctor? Ah, yes, fascinating.
Fascinating. New discovery.
Who'd have thought?
Oh,
Oh man, that's
In
great.
his defense, all he does is chuck pills, so he's probably a holistic doctor.
oh god, you're right.
He's got
He
a
does-
degree in baloney.
He does a little mushrooms.
They're made from the finest mushrooms that you can ground up. Except for these strange purple ones, I wouldn't touch those. But no, I mean, I think that's just pretty much it. Pokemon and Mario just mostly come to mind. They're easy answers for some, I'm sure, but that's just how I'm viewing it.
You don't buy into that whole timeline from the Legend of Zelda thing?
I don't really think I do anymore. Breath of the Wild still has me thinking that there's a timeline because there's landmarks named after other shit. And like you have Linebeck Island, so that makes me think that if it did have a timeline, it would be set after the new Hyrule games for sure.
What is Lineback Island? I forget what that is.
It's not even a huge major landmark. It's like in the I don't remember which region it's in.
That's from the
I know
3D
it's in
games, right?
it's in the Nairu region or Nairu region where
In the desert.
it's just like some kind of marsh or wetland. I think it's not even that big a deal. It's like a marsh or wetland area. It's one of those places where they have the foothold, and then you just fight random moblins there. And there's that ring of water they could drop into. It's one of those types of landmarks, but it's marked on the map. Linebeck's name is there, so that leads me to believe that Linebeck was revered as a hero in old Hyrule lore. But there's also a Mabe village in Hyrule Field, which is confusing because Mabe Village is from Link's Awakening. Yeah. I have questions, sure, but my timeline theory just went from a definite to just a distant maybe because they keep changing the lore. So, I don't know. Zelda's just one of those things where it's like I'll keep playing the games, and even if they change up the lore behind it, I don't necessarily distance myself from them because that's really not what I'm here about. If they decide that there's going to be an origin story way before Skyward Sword, I'll play that. I don't care if it's good, if it's engaging. It's for me. So
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. What is okay, so is that everybody?
Oh, Apollo hasn't said what his favorite lore is.
Yeah, I wanted to wait until last because it oddly enough uh, lines up exactly with Sean's answers in terms of being Resident Evil and Bioshock. I would give shout outs to like Fallout and Elder Scrolls and even the Doom series. Those all have a lot of, and the From Software games, they all have like a lot of really interesting lore that you can look up like on YouTube. Like Oxhorn does a lot of great Fallout stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of those games have a ton of lore that you would just they're much more intricate worlds than you would even think. But I guess with starting like the reason Resident Evil and Bioshock I guess take the cake for me, like Bioshock specifically, I would say Infinite is definitely my favorite game out of that trilogy, and I think one of the reasons there's a lot of reasons for it. It has to, I love the character work with Elizabeth and Booker, and I love the whole parallel reality just theme with it because there's not. I don't feel like there's a lot of good stories that do parallel realities or dimensions very well. Still, like with the Lutece twins and all the things that they do and the reason why they're doing them, and then you get into the burial. I mean, there's all the stuff like at the end where Booker has to the way to like take out Comstock, the main villain, is to kill Booker at a specific point in his life, and that like takes out a lot of the parallel Elizabeths and all this stuff. But the way that the lore is specifically in Burial at Sea, the DLCs for Bioshock Infinite. The second episode in particular, because they go back to Rapture in that one, and because it's Elizabeth going through. She's basically going from the last point in the game. She's going through all the different dimensions, trying to kill all of the different versions of Comstock. Because killing him at that point and at the end of the game, like that wasn't enough. Like because as the title. As the title says, it's infinite, right? Like there's an infinite number of them, so that's just become her quest. But the way that Infinite basically loops the infinite game to the original game is really awesome. Like the whole thing about like Su Chong, who's the scientist in the original game, basically using the interdimensional technology to trade technology with Comstock to use in fuck, I can't remember. For some reason, I can't remember the name of the city in Infinite. But basically, they were trading technology through Colombia. Thank you. They were trading technology. So it's like they were literally trading from like 1959 to 1912 in different dimensions, and that's why the technology in both games looks alike, but it's different. And there's just so many cool touches like that, and the way that it all wraps up with like Elizabeth meeting Fontaine, and who's the villain in the original game, meeting him, and like you get to see like how Elizabeth directly ties into the very first scene of the very first Bioshock game with a plane being taken down, and which gets the original character Jack to Rapture in the first place. And the whole like tying that entire thing into the would you kindly, all that shit is literally tied together in that one DLC, and it's fucking amazing. And the way that like Fontaine is the reason why like Elizabeth dies at the end and all these things, it's amazing. Yeah, it's so well done. But like I would say for Resident Evil, it's pretty much just piggybacking on what Sean was talking about. I like that the notes and stuff, they give you more insight into the world and stuff, but I like that it's I guess up until Resident Evil 4, like everything past 4 is very different in that it's like not only is it not as good, but it's also like it's just the viruses and bioweapons in the world have just become normal. Like after like 5 onwards, they've just become like it's televised and like, oh, there's zombies, another zombie outbreak in China. Okay, like it's just run of the mill at that point, and it's like it doesn't make any sense. But like basically all the classic Resident Evil games from like 0 until Code Veronica, they're all isolated incidents, which makes it lean into the tinfoil hat. I guess the lore. The reason why that game's probably my favorite one, definitely in terms of lore, is just because the story and the characters, and you get to meet like the Ashford twins, or these like twisted, like Lannister-esque like fuckers who like it's very like it's a very incestuous, like weird fucking like relationship, and they're tied. They do experiments on their father and stuff, which you like get to like fight later on in the Antarctic base later on in the game, and like it's very you have like nods to like Psycho and stuff where Claire's like passing by a window and she sees like the silhouette of a woman, and she's talking, and Claire's like, wait, are there two people in this room or one? And it's like really just Alfred Ashford like dressed up as his sister. And you're like, man, it's so weird. And then you get later on, you learn that he actually cryogenically froze his sister, and she survived, and she's like the mastermind behind all of it. But yeah, like the lore in that game, especially in the classic Resident Evil games, I think it kind of died out. Even though I love Resident Evil 4, the lore in that game, it's not good at all. But the classic Resident Evil games are amazing, and I kind of wish it's kind of a shame that lore sputtered out the way it did, because I know Sean and I used to theorize about like where the series was going in terms, because you had stuff like in Resident Evil 4 where like Wesker, like Ada was delivering the viruses to Wesker in the background, and it was like, oh, so Wesker has, so at some point in the story, Wesker does have all like samples of all of the viruses, like the T virus, the G virus, the T Veronica virus, all like the
Plagas.
Yeah, the Las Plagas. Like he has all of them, and I was like, well, surely he's because he's another part of the insane lore of these games is that like Wesker is like an assassin, but he's also an undercover agent. But he's also like a virologist, and he helped like develop the fucking virus and all this shit, and like, so he's like a scientist as well, and like it was like, okay, so surely he's gonna find a way to like combine these viruses or do something insane and like have just an amalgamation of like all this stuff together and have it all tie in, but that never happened at all. None of that materialized at all.
I never played number 6, so none of that.
No. In Resident Evil 6,
monsters? Are they
in
like
Resident Evil 6, they literally just introduced a bunch of new viruses. It's like the C virus, all this bullshit. Like
A B C D F G viruses.
Yeah, it's going to the alphabet. That's all it is. And they had like I thought they might go into it when I first played Resident Evil 5. They might go into it a little bit because they had like a tinge of a good idea in the beginning where they were like, oh, these viruses have been distributed into the black market, and like now like they're like terrorists are using them, and like there's a lot of cool story potential there that they just unfortunately never went with. But yeah, the classic Resident Evil games for sure have some of my favorite lore.
It's perhaps why. So did you enjoy at all like the lore for the Resident Evil 7? Because it's kind of going back to that kind of same vibe where it's like more concentrated into a.
It is an isolated incident.
Yeah.
But it's still a new virus being introduced. Like it's literally still like, oh, this is the E virus. Like, and it's just a new fucking thing. And I'm like, but why are we still introducing new viruses? Like, why aren't we like, what happened to the T virus? What happened to all these other viruses that are out there on the black market? Like, it's just kind of, I feel like it's just a missed opportunity to make this series like way more interesting. Like, because you have small things, like I don't even remember the details of it, but I remember thinking it was really, really cool in the moment. in Resident Evil 5 because they bring back Jill Valentine. Of course, they bring her back in a stupid, like, lame way where she has, like, a jewel in her chest and you have to fight her, and it's
Oh, yeah.
fucking dumb, like, but, like, they had cool lore about, like, the reason why, like, Wesker experimented on her was because after Resident Evil 3, when she gets infected with the Nemesis parasite, and then, like, she gets cured by Carlos Oliveira, like, she has an immunity to some of the viruses, and so they basically like at one point put all the different viruses into her and made her immune to all of them. And like they went into this, and of course all of that is in notes. It's not in the fucking game. Like it's not in the cutscenes or anything. But like that was really cool. It would have been cool if they had gone with that. But canonically, as in terms of the timeline, we haven't even seen Jill since Resident Evil 5. So who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, Chris is gonna be back for number 8.
Yeah, he's back again. Because,
Like-
you know, having him in 5 and then 6, that wasn't enough. And then having him at the end of 7, let's just keep bringing him back.
He looks
Not
a
the
lot
more
different
interesting
from 7, by
characters.
the way.
Yeah,
looks
because,
like
he
He gained a lot of weight.
Well, I mean, in 8, he looks like he looked in the other Resident Evil games, aside from 7, where they totally redesigned him and nobody liked the design, so they just switched it back. Like, he's like blonde and shit, and people are like, what is this? Like, why did you do this?
Why was this necessary?
Catch this. Fix him, please.
Yeah, but Resident Evil 8, you know, I think we talked about this a little bit before, but you know, I didn't like Resident Evil 7 as much as the rest of the world. I thought it was a pretty good game. I didn't think it was amazing. Not really what I want from the series, but Resident Evil 8 looks fun, but I don't really care about its lore. It's got werewolves and maybe vampires. It looks like, and it looks cool. I'm interested in it, but I'm definitely. It's just not. It's not what I want lore-wise, which I guess is why it's just one of the many reasons why I love Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes. Is just because they kind of go back and like they fill in a few of the very very small plot holes, of which there are many in the lore, like why the survivors keep getting bitten and they just survive, like you know Leon and Claire and Jill and Chris, why they.
What was the other thing that
Okay, I have maybe one last thing to add about the lore thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll
Go for it.
be crazy, but there's one lore that I actually was kind of fascinated by at first, and it just completely dropped off, and that was actually the Assassin's Creed lore.
Assassin's Creed lore too. Yeah.
Yeah, all that nonsense about the Apple of Eden and how.
It's 100% nonsense, but I love it.
It
It was the most intriguing parts to those games for many years, for sure.
Yeah, and then it just kind of imploded in Assassin's Creed 3, where it just like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was fascinating. It was taking like all those myths that from history, from like the Bible and stuff.
Yeah, I can't even.
We all know.
I can't even remember where I stopped playing. I think I stopped playing actually when I think the second one is pretty much when I stopped playing. Because where's the second one? I don't know. Whatever the one where it's like they gave him it's continuing giving that carrot on the stick at the end of it where it's all like here's the hint to the story and then it's like okay
all of them.
That's
I know that's pretty much all of them.
Well, I stopped playing like I think it was at either the second one or the third one. I don't know. Whatever one is just like where I felt like I am not gonna get through the story ever. They're never gonna tell me. Anyways, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't keep playing this game over and over.
That's fair. Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I stopped playing it. Yeah. I mean,
for many years, the only reason I kept playing those games is because I love a good like Assassin's fiction story, and like I really really wanted the series to be good, even when it usually wasn't. And luckily, it eventually did get really good. But like I
think I remember which one. Was it the one that added that multiplayer with four? You could be like four assassins. Okay, that's the one where I just thought I actually did come back and then like stop playing after that. I think.
Right, because I remember we all tried to play the multiplayer for that together.
What a disaster that was.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That was so. ugh, per
They were
usual,
trying
glitchy.
something new. They were trying something new that totally failed.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had fun with Unity. I liked the whole like time hole things or whatever the fuck they did, where like
Uh-huh.
you'd be transported to do, like World War II Paris or something. That was
Oh, yeah.
cool, but like yeah, it's not like it's I don't know.
I mean, the
That
architecture
was
in the
still when the
game,
series was pretty weak in my opinion. So
it's
which
pretty
was
much,
most of
yeah.
it.
It was at a really bad time in this current generation where like everybody was just pumping out their games like unfinished.
But yeah, it was the
Yeah.
beginning of the generation, so you know it was a lot of them. That honestly is unfortunately what sort of started the trend that we're still on, where developers will just put out unfinished games and just have a roadmap, which is like a finished game, but you get it in like
Eventually.
2 years if you pay like extra money.
We'll give you more inventory and make you pay $100 for it, per year. Fallout 76.
Yeah. There's still someone on my friends list who's been playing that game since launch for the last 2 years, like every day.
That's insane.
Wow. That's some loyalty to the
Yeah, seriously.
that
It's
IP.
something. It is something.
Yeah.
It's something.
To ignore all the shit and pain that you have to get through.
I mean, wasn't it essentially the same as like pretty much downloaded the game from last year and then it has extra shit thrown in? It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
it's an
I
expansion
mean,
pack.
extra shit, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, it's extra shit, but the entire game is completely broken, and it gets more and more broken every week, and they continue to fuck over their player base by, like, doxing them and, like, accidentally exposing their credit card numbers and shit, and, like, the most dedicated players are the ones who are unfortunately punished the most.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there's a story about, like, a guy who played quote-unquote, too much. Like, he reached his limit that Bethesda thought was the limit, and he played so much that they fucking banned him. I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. They
They've
banned
done
him
so many
for
stupid things.
yeah.
Like, if you should check out Jim Sterling's videos on fucking YouTube, because he goes fucking ham with Fallout 76 and Bethesda's just complete ineptitude with that game. Like,
Mhm.
it's pretty amazing that it's still an ongoing issue.
Yeah, and then what about the modders that fixed some stuff in the game and they
Yeah.
get banned for
Yeah.
fucking fixing their
Yeah.
damn game? Or
Yeah.
let's just what about a guy getting banned for proving a bug exists and
Right.
then reporting it, and he gets
Yeah.
banned because he tested the fucking bug.
Yep.
It's like the customer service people are so inept at training of what the fuck they're doing that they're just like, you know what, ban him, done. My job is done. Quota for the day.
I mean, the shit trickles downhill, so it's not
Yeah.
like the customer service sucks because the people above them suck because the people above them suck. Like, the
Right.
whole company is kind of
Giant suckfest.
It's not what it once was, unfortunately.
We're not just good, we are goob.